where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of over there? Because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time. They talk down to us. They think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and it's turning into something truly, truly special. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing that. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Things First, where they're talking about the Super Bowl, and if it's fair, the Chiefs are yet again underdogs. So, I think this is a true coin flip, and I think the spread is 2.5 now, and I don't know if that's changed at all. I think it opened at 2.5, and I don't really know how those things work in terms of when it changes and stuff like that. But it may change in the next week or so. But yeah, let's just kind of see what they have to say, and then kind of go off from there. We obviously know Nick is going to say, it's absurd, but I don't know what Brew's going to say.
Many Super Bowl previews for the Super First Things First Bowl. You may have seen Brew there.
And I'm not sure my pick.
Yeah, I know.
I got.
Hey, Brew.
I
if
love
Prime Drew Brees were on this Niners team, who do you think you'd have?
The Chiefs, because he's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is better than Drew Brees.
He hasn't made his call.
I haven't made my call yet.
He hasn't made his call.
But
it's not
Patrick
like you
Mahomes,
shaking the pom-poms.
Right. I got to analyze.
Is this just frozen?
49ers are favored by 1.5. Rasheed Rice putting the Wild Wild West in the AFC West. We're the Outlaws. Okay. Everybody wants to beat the Chiefs. We're the ones you want to take down. We got a target on our back every day. Yeah, maybe on Sundays. Are you surprised the Chiefs are underdogs again, Nick?
No, it's 1.5.
No, of course. What do you mean? Man, I'm surprised.
No, they're the.
You were really not surprised.
No, I knew they'd be underdogs.
Really?
Yeah, of course. The Chiefs are the bizarro Bills. All the accomplishments, none of the belief. And so the way Vegas is like, let's look at what the Chiefs have been according to Vegas up to this point in the season, up to this point in the playoffs, pardon me. Round one, even though they were at home, and evidently everyone knew all along that Miami is just not allowed to play competent football in the cold. Everyone knew it. They were only 4-point favorites. Round two, against Buffalo, even though everyone knew Buffalo was basically running a junior college defense out there. They had played literally a day and a half before while Kansas City.
Well, Nick Wright just admitted that the defense for the Bills was decimated. I just want to pause that and emphasize that.
Even off for 2 months, the Bills were 3.5-point favorites. Round three, even though everyone knew, the Ravens don't have the history, Lamar could tighten up, that they opened at 3-point favorites in Baltimore, and by kickoff, they were 5-point favorites.
Nuts.
And so now you're playing a Niners team that everyone knows has a quarterback who this season played better than Mahomes.
Drew Brees.
Right, that's third team All-Pro.
Right. Brew doesn't do hypotheticals. He does do make-believe All-Pro teams, though. His third team All-Pro. A defense that people actually believe in as opposed to the awesome one. And so, yeah, of course they're the underdogs. Of course they're the underdogs.
I was shocked when they became, yes. There's no reason that San Francisco should be the favorites.
It opened at 3. It's moved.
You saw it quickly.
It quickly
like
moved down.
And
The sharp money came in.
Yeah, that is what happened. Yeah, good job, Wes. Yeah.
No, there's no reason. 2 months ago, everybody thought San Francisco was going to run through the league. Then they thought that about Baltimore. And there's no reason they should be number one. The Chiefs, in beating Miami, Buffalo, and Baltimore, they beat a Pro Bowl quarterback in Tua. They beat the presumable MVP or soon-to-be MVP in Lamar Jackson. And they beat another guy that's in the top 5 for MVP voting.
Yep.
All right? They beat the team that destroyed San Francisco, okay? And so, there's no reason. And San Francisco has not looked great in these playoffs.
Correct.
2 come-from-behind victories.
I don't think they've looked great since they worked Philly. If you look at their
No, that's fair.
Because after that,
That's
they played
fair.
a close one against Arizona, or maybe the Arizona one was only close going into the halftime. A close one against Seattle. They got worked by Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Here's another. Look, Green Bay ran for the defense. Kansas City's defense is better. That front line of the Niners not looking good. 136 yards for Green Bay, 182 for Detroit. And you got Pacheco.
Kansas City might just forget to run the ball like Baltimore did. Has nothing to do with the
That
defense.
was
All right.
So I wouldn't say that it's surprising because I could see the argument that you're saying that the 49ers haven't looked good since the Eagles game, which I think is totally fair. Because they've the Chiefs have, or the 49ers have been kind of, I don't want to say struggling, but they haven't looked elite. And that was my argument that I made about a month ago or so, that a lot of people were not very happy about because they weren't playing elite ball. And then part of why the 49ers were kind of crowned as being elite was the fact that they beat up on the Cowboys and the Eagles so much. And it was like, well, the Eagles and the Cowboys were never really that good in the first place. So how impressive is that? And then they obviously got smoked by the Ravens. But then they had, these 2 wins, obviously, against the Packers and the Detroit Lions. And again, you can't say that those were good, convincing, pretty wins. I mean, they just weren't. They were both come from behind and both could have lost that game. Both those games they could have lost without a doubt. So then that's the big question mark. And then on the other side with the Chiefs, again, beating the Dolphins is not that impressive to me. It never was. So congratulations, you beat the Dolphins, who everyone for the most part and never really had a tremendous amount of confidence in, whether it was warm weather or not, just in general, but especially in freezing cold weather with Tua. And then the same thing against the Bills. You were playing a decimated defense. I mean, that's just a fact. And yet that still came down to the wire, and the Bills could have won that game, and then a few strategic drops. So again, those were both games for the Chiefs, at least, that they could have lost. And then of course they played the extra game because they didn't have the bye. And so then they played the Ravens, which again was just a disastrous game plan from the Ravens. The Ravens just completely imploded and just played terrible. And again, the Chiefs played good. It's not to take away from the Chiefs, but the Ravens really, just played exceptionally awful and just terrible game plan. And Lamar imploded, and it was just ugly all around. I'm not going to go into all of that again, but that also wasn't this convincing win of we are in charge, you have no chance at beating us. The Ravens could have won that game. They absolutely could have won that game, right? It was a 1-score game. The Dolphins game was more probably the most convincing game than anything, for sure. But again, it was a hard game to read because it was so freezing cold that it was just a very unique game. And so any of even the low scoring aspect of it, you were originally oh, well, it was freezing cold. What are you expecting? What do it's catching bricks out there. It was just, even kicking field goals was difficult. So it was just a game that you had to judge through a very specific lens. You literally saw icicles on Andy Reid's mustache, which was just crazy looking. So that was just a more difficult game to really evaluate in terms of the aftermath of it all, the post game, or what you could expect from the Chiefs going into the next couple of games. So I would say that the truth is that this has been such an interesting run for the playoffs, especially because you've had other seasons in the past where teams really convincingly won their way into the Super Bowl, or convincingly even won the Super Bowl. Let's just use last year as a reference point. The Eagles convincingly won. And yeah, they were definitely had some of the good fortune of having Brock Purdy go down, but I think they would have won that game either way because they were just destroyed. I mean, they literally knocked out multiple quarterbacks because their defensive line was just outrageous, and the offensive line couldn't stop them. So they were just literally injuring the quarterbacks, right? They were, and even if you don't want to count that game, the games before that, convincing wins, blowouts. And the Chiefs had a little bit tighter everything, but they were this high-powered offense. I think it was the best offense in the NFL at that time, that season, or at least the highest scoring. And again, convincingly winning. And it was the 1 seed versus the 1 seed. And then the Super Bowl, both teams really had moments where they were convincingly the better team in that moment, quite honestly, right? More notably the Eagles in the first half and then the Chiefs in the second half. And you can't really point to plays, at least in the Super Bowl, where one team really like blew it or that they really like dropped the ball and you're like, why did you do that, right? Like when the Eagles were playing good, it was because they were outplaying the Chiefs in that moment. And when the Chiefs came back to win the Super Bowl, it was because the Chiefs were outplaying the Eagles. Like again, it wasn't these like fluky weird things where a ball bounces off someone's helmet and then catches it, in the other hands, or a terrible missed call, or the fact that a wide receiver or a safety fell down and now the wide receiver is wide open. Like there was none of these like real fluke plays that you could be like, oh man, the Chiefs really got lucky that play, or oh man, the Eagles really got lucky that play. It was just it was the two best teams in the NFL going at it, and both showing why they belonged there. Now, I would say that through the playoffs, both the NFC and the AFC, both these teams, the 49ers and the Chiefs, proved why they belong there and why they belong in the Super Bowl. But a lot of it was more about outlasting the other teams and their lack of championship experience and veterans and coaching. Shanahan and Andy Reid, outcoached every other team, every other coach. The offensive weapons for the 49ers proved to be way more resilient and dependable when it really mattered than the Packers and the Detroit Lions. The defense proved to be way more dependable and resilient for the Chiefs against any of the three teams that they played throughout the playoffs. Maybe a little bit less so the Ravens, because the Ravens played pretty great defense that game as well. And then the quarterbacks, right? Like Patrick Mahomes obviously was always going to prove to be able to outlast and minimize any types of mistakes in any of the quarterbacks that he was playing throughout the playoffs. And then even Brock Purdy, out of all the games that he played, whether it was against Love or against Jared Goff, he had higher moments throughout those games that were higher than the other teams that he played, right? Like I wouldn't say that you could say that Brock Purdy necessarily outplayed Jared Goff or outplayed Love, but in the moments that really mattered, Purdy was able to step up. So in those moments, he was able to outplay those quarterbacks. So I would just say that, again, what made both these teams special in their own right, and how they got to where they were, is their experience, is the fact that they're pretty much all vets, outside of obviously a few players here and there. They've all been there before. They've been in these moments. They can withstand the pressure and the moment better than any of the other teams they played, because the other teams were just never there before and have never proven that they can withstand that pressure and that moment. And so to me, that's actually probably the biggest things that happened. These teams were also prepared the most relative to the other teams, and they were the most resilient to whether it's the weather, whether it was being down, whatever these other factors at play were, they were proven to be more resilient, which again to me is also comes with experience in coaching and veteran leadership as well. But none of these teams, either of these teams I should say, they weren't like convincing power wins where it was like, yeah, that's right, we are the best, you have to, if you want to get by us, if you want to win, you have to get by us. That's not what the Packers 49ers game was. That's not what the 49ers Detroit Lions game was, right? That's just not how that game unfolded. And same thing with the Chiefs and the three teams they played. Really, outside of the Dolphins game, that really was the only game that they could be like, come on, Dolphins, you're not on our level. You can't beat us. Get out of here. Oh, it's a little cold. Get over it. This is the playoffs. This is what you got to do. But the Ravens game and the Bills game was not this like, that's right, we are the best. It was like, no, we minimize our mistakes way better than you. We game plan way better than you. And listen, if you want to make a big play when the pressure's on, go for it. But we don't think you can. And they couldn't, right? Dropping passes while the Chiefs were catching the passes, right? Travis Kelce making a great catch while the Bills couldn't, right? Like they couldn't catch the ball in the big moment when they really needed that catch. And so So to me, that's kind of the difference. And so that's why I think actually trying to say, like, who's the underdog here or not. I think these teams both are very evenly matched. And I think they both have, their own question mark or so, technically, theoretically. I would say the offense for the Chiefs is still a question mark. Yes, they've kind of tightened up the mistakes in general, but they're still obviously not scoring points. And so if they do get in a true shootout, will you be able to rely on some of the other weapons outside of just Rice or Kelsey? I don't know. I really don't. It really depends, especially now in the Super Bowl. You can count on Kelsey and stuff like that in the Super Bowl, but and you can obviously count on Mahomes and Reed to come up with a great plan. But then I think going into this game, the question mark for the 49ers to some degree is maybe their defense. I don't know. We'll have to see. But then also Brock Purdy. Can Brock Purdy play a consistent game start to finish? Yes, he's rose to the occasion in the second half or in the fourth quarter or in big moments, but I'm not so sure you'll be able to get away with that against the Chiefs. If Brock Purdy throws an interception or throws some of these balls that should be intercepted, those should be intercepted. I believe the Chiefs will actually intercept them. And then now you're talking about a multi-turnover game for Brock Purdy, and it's like, is that enough to come back from that? If the 49ers go down by 14 points against the Chiefs, now you have Andy Reid managing that game and Patrick Mahomes, and are they really going to allow you to come back down by 14? I'm not betting on that, right? I'm betting on Patrick Mahomes being able to do what needs to be done and Andy Reid doing what needs to be done, not going for it on fourth down when he shouldn't multiple times, and also one of the defense for the Chiefs, because they are a really great elite defense. I'm not banking on it hitting his helmet and then bouncing in Ayuk's hands again, so like those are tough things. So I think if Brock Purdy can really truly play a great game, I think Brock Purdy would have to play better than he's even played throughout the regular season, which he's obviously capable of doing and rising to the moment. But I think if Brock Purdy plays elevated and it really ends up being what all of the 49ers fans want, then if you want to bet on the modern NFL and modern football and say that it's no longer defense wins championships, it's who has the better offense, you would have to say that the 49ers theoretically have the better offense, even though I believe in Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes more than anyone else on the 49ers, personally. But if you want to say no, listen, the defense is going to be able to really make Brock Purdy uncomfortable. Brock Purdy doesn't have enough experience yet. Even Patrick Mahomes looked terrible in the Super Bowl, really kind of multiple Super Bowls, really. And so they're going to be able to get to Brock Purdy, and you're just not going to be able to do it. And I think that's also a very viable thing. So to me, that's what it'll come down to. I'm not foreseeing this shootout between Purdy and Mahomes, and it's just going to be this back and forth. I just can't imagine that. And I don't think that either teams are even necessarily capable of doing that personally. Because again, the Chiefs defense is going to be really good. So having a shootout like that to me maybe seems unlikely. Although they got gash, they can get gash in the run. Theoretically, they have they had like the worst rushing defense of the last four teams that were left. And obviously they have the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey. So who knows? That could be something that the 49ers get to exploit. And then again, if the Chiefs, since the Chiefs, we haven't seen it in the Chiefs all season, but if the Chiefs really need to call upon Patrick Mahomes and that offense to say, listen, the 49ers offense is for real. They're going to put up points. They're going to put up 30 plus points, 28 plus points. We need points from the Chiefs, from Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Can they do that? And again, you're not going to count out Patrick Mahomes, of course, but does he have the team? Does he have the resources? So the Super Bowl is fascinating to me. I really have no idea how it's going to go, but I think actually so much of it is going to come down on, I think as of right now, that's my prediction, is it's going to come down to on how well does Brock Purdy play. If Brock Purdy plays a really solid, good game, I think the 49ers can definitely beat the Chiefs. But if Brock Purdy has played like he has played in the last two games, I don't think then the Chiefs, that the 49ers would win, because I think the Chiefs are too good of a team. Andy Reid is too good of a coach, and Patrick Mahomes is too good of a quarterback to not be able to manage that game. That's just how I'm thinking about it right now. I'm gonna wait until but I believe that's what my first kind of thoughts on it all are. But what do you all think? Do you think, are you surprised the Chiefs are underdogs again? Do you think the Chiefs should be underdogs? Who do you think's going to win the Super Bowl? Obviously, we're going to be talking about this for the next week and a half or so. I'm excited for it. I can't wait. Would love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know them in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would love to see you part of it. And please give this video a thumbs up, as it really helps with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.